The fantasy playoffs are coming. Here are the players that you need to add as soon as possible to guarantee yourself an undefeated stretch moving forward in the rest of the fantasy football season. If you do like this video and you want to show your support, hit that like button, possibly even subscribe if you want to get these videos for the rest of the year as well. I don't waste time. In the end of the video, I'll be going over some defenses that we can stream that are very, very good. But the first ad of the week is going to be Xavier Legette. The Panthers offense does look a lot better and more elevated with Bryce Young back in here, especially compared to the beginning of the season. They're averaging 21 points a game over their last 4. Keep in mind, they've played against some pretty decent teams in the Broncos, Saints, Giants, Chiefs over the last 4. That's pretty good competition. Now, the touchdown upside isn't necessarily going to be great with this team, but the yardage is definitely getting better. The defense is terrible, which is a plus. When your defense is bad, you're going to have to stay in pass-first scripts, which is going to get these wide receivers the ball more and more opportunities to make something happen, especially when they do get some more positive matchups coming forward against the Buccaneers, Eagles, Cowboys, and the Cardinals. All matchups where they should be passing, and again, get the ball more to their wide receivers. Even with Adam Thielen coming back into this offense and increasing his snaps as he gets more healthy, he does lead this team in routes run per game and involvement. He's not going anywhere. Since this offense solidified itself in week 8, he's averaging just under 6 targets a game, and he's just passed his bye week as well. So after that, we do typically see a rookie bump in production, time on field, and usage. If that does happen, he's definitely going to be a guy we want to roster on our team before any of that happens. Another wide receiver we need to be keeping an eye on here is going to be Devon Vele of the Broncos. Last week, he comes out 14 fantasy points against the Raiders. That's 3 now. Back-to-back games with over 10 fantasy points. He's had 15 receptions over his last 3 games. If you isolate that stretch of those 3 games, he's also averaging 62 yards. That's really good numbers, especially on a Broncos team that's just kind of getting its footing, finding itself and really being a decent offense in this league. They have a pretty good record, again, just coming off a win against the Raiders where it's actually a negative matchup for the wide receivers. The defense isn't great, but it's a run-first matchup, and he still managed to put up 14 fantasy points in that. A lot of that success is coming from Bo Nix. This guy is 9th in passing attempts, just outside the top 10 in air yards per game. There is more than enough room for a wide receiver 2 option in this offense, especially just a number 2 option in general. They don't have that. His snap share has been increasing on the year. It's steadily backing that fact. Now he comes into a week 13 matchup here against the Browns, who allow the 8th most points to opposing wide receivers. We know Jameis Winston loves to throw the ball. This game should be a shootout as far as shootouts between these 2 teams go. That's going to be a good one. I do like to have him for the rest of the season as well because he will be coming into his week 14 bye after that. Again, if we see this rookie bump after the bye week, he could be a guy that will separate us in leagues. But if you're looking for running backs, those are the guys you need this week. Jeremy McNichols might actually be worth some time for you. We've seen time and time again when one of these Commanders running backs comes in, comes out, they always run a 2 running back system. He's going to be a guy that gets touches. Because of this, McNichols will have a role regardless, and now we see Austin Eckler possibly dealing with an injury that is somewhat serious. As of now, we don't know the extent to that injury, but it is a pretty good chance that he's not good to go in this week 13 matchup against the Titans. It's not necessarily a positive defense, but the Commanders' offense has been good enough to be able to support their running backs as well. We saw Brian Robinson get rolled up on in the first drive of the game last week. He's perfectly healthy, at least it seems to be, but he has had his previous injury history, so if they get McNichols rolled in even more because of that, that's also a plus for him. So if we do get one of Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler out, we can expect him to see around 40% of the snaps and some good running back touches. He is a guy that they use heavily at the goal line. He's the RB9 in touchdown rush share, and he is efficient. He's the RB10 in yards per carry. Yes, it's a very small sample size, but this offense knows how to use their guys, and they are a very run-heavy offense. But if you're looking for a tight end here, Will Dissly is going to be that guy for you. I talked about him last week, finally getting the recognition he deserves, averaging 10.1 fantasy points a game and 6.5 targets since their bye week in week 5. He has really been on a tear, and a lot of that is because of the passing volume for Justin Herbert. It's really just a completely different offense. They were dead last in passing attempts in the first few weeks of the season. After the bye week, now they're about 15th, about average in the NFL. That's a big difference. It might not be the best, but jumping up that many spots is definitely going to help this wide receiver room and just every option in the offense as well, which is why we've seen Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey get a lot more usage and just general fantasy success. And now we have Hayden Hurst consistently being a healthy scratch and getting 0 snaps, which is leading him to see more routes run, more time on field, and more general opportunities. Now, he does play tonight, which that might raise his stock even more. It might drop depending on what actually happens in this game. But regardless, we should be adding him. The underlying numbers are there for him. He's a tight end 5 in targets, the tight end 4 in receptions, and the tight end 2 in yards per route run. Not to mention, he gets one of the easiest rest of season schedules for the tight end position. He gets the Falcons, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers in his next 3. Those are all positive. If you're looking for a quarterback, though, a guy that I do like streaming this week is going to be Russell Wilson. Yes, he didn't have the best game against the Browns last week. He only put up 13.8 fantasy points. But if we're being completely honest, we have to remember he played in a literal blizzard last week, so you really can't take any of those passing numbers away from him. The passing attempts were down. The touchdowns were down. He only had 1 passing touchdown. They stuck to the ground. It is what it is. You can't take that game for anything more than what it was. But now he's coming into this week's matchup against the Bengals, a team that is very positive to fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, just generally positive to offenses as well. We've seen their last few games. They allow a ton of points, and it's not going to be snowing in that matchup, which is also a positive. Russ has been the QB 9 or better in the last 2 out of 4 games that he's played, through some tough matchups mixed in there as well. He's the QB 6 in passing attempts inside the 10, which is very, very good for quarterbacks that don't have the most rushing upside. He can still do that, but he is 36. That upside is a little bit lower for him. If you have that much success in the pass game, in the red zone, you're going to get fantasy points and touchdowns because of that, as well as being the QB 11 in pass yards per game. This offense is rolling. He gets one of the easiest rest of season schedules for quarterbacks as well, so I would be looking to hold him, especially for the rest of the season. The Bengals this week, followed by the Browns, Eagles, and Ravens in his next 3. Only one tough matchup, and that's a divisional one against the Ravens. And we've seen time and time again that this Ravens matchup is always close, regardless of who they have on the field. As you can see, this waiver wire isn't necessarily the most groundbreaking compared to other weeks in fantasy football, so it might honestly be better to keep the guys you have on your bench. Let me know who you're considering dropping or adding off the waiver wire. I will answer all my questions, but there are some good defenses we can go out and get if you stream. Again, streaming is the #1 way to guarantee yourself more success on defenses and just fantasy points in general. The first team here is going to be the Cowboys. They gained some real, honestly, life against what's supposed to be a good offense. They dropped 24 fantasy points on them last week, coming from 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 2 special teams touchdowns. Now, you can't expect that to happen every single week. Those numbers are a little bit inflated, maybe a lot of bit inflated, but when you have Micah Parsons on this defense playing fully healthy, it definitely solidifies the upside and just the solid point base for them, especially against a divisional matchup with the Giants that they get this week, which, as far as we know, Tommy DeVito is the quarterback regardless of who they pick. It's not a top guy. This defense is solid on their own. They're playing a very bad team in the Giants. Tommy DeVito last week against one of the easier pass defenses in the league in the Buccaneers, he only put up 189 passing yards. The game is going to be at a lower projected total as well, so that's going to be a plus for as many points the defenses allow. The Colts is another great option if you can't get them. They get a matchup against the Patriots, who have struggled in previous weeks, especially last week. May has had 5 interceptions in his last 4 games and has absolutely no time to pass in the pocket, which leads to sacks, interceptions, bad decisions is what you want for a defense. So they don't have any real playmakers on that team, and the Colts have been susceptible and torched by top guys this year. So that's a plus for them as well. We're going to take that statistic out. And the Colts have had 12 sacks in their last 4 games, facing some pretty good matchups against the Lions last week. They also got the Jets, the Bills, and the Vikings. Those are all really, really good teams, and they've been able to put up some decent sack numbers. The fantasy points haven't been there, but it's been tough matchups. What more can you really say? They will be fighting coming into their bye week in week 14 to get that rest. The best option to stream off the waiver wire this week is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unfortunately, they are rostered in a lot more percentages of leagues, so I left them to the end. Definitely go check if they are there. I will go over them quick. They get a matchup against the Panthers, who are absolutely terrible. They've gotten a lot better as of late. They're averaging 21 points a game again in their last 4, but Bryce Young is still not a stranger to interceptions, to turnovers in general. And also, as a defense, if you want to stash them, you can do that. They get some really good matchups for the rest of the season against the Raiders, the Chargers, the Cowboys, and the Panthers. Again, to finish out their fantasy season, they get the Panthers this week. It's just going to be a good operation for them all the way around. But that is going to finish off this video. Thank you guys so much for sticking around through my voice that I don't have. I'm sick coming off it. Hopefully it'll get better so you guys don't have to listen to this. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the waiver wire trap video coming tomorrow. You don't want to miss that. And all glory to the man above.